Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome back to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass First Impressions coverage. This is the overall wrap-up video with some extra notes, thoughts, highlights, bits, bobs, pieces, and parts for the Warlock class. And the footage behind is the new dungeon. So if you actually do not want any spoilers of the new stuff, granted you've seen a whole bunch of previous of the other two dungeons, Necrotic Wake and the Halls of Atonement, but this is the Mists of Tirna Scythe, something like that. If you don't want to see any of the footage, of course you can just listen. You don't have to actually watch the Destruction Warlock footage playing out. But if you are interested and you don't really care about the environmental or boss spoilery stuff, then there you go. I'm trying out different things in this build. I'm trying out the new quote-unquote buffed Fire and Brimstone. It feels okay. That's about all I can say. Obviously, the more targets that scale, the more little fire trails of incinerates that fly out there, the better it feels. But in this video, I have in front of me my notes, as well as the two big documents that are also linked in the video description box down below. One that was put together from the Council of the Black Harvest, and Baal put together this giant post. Well, it's Baalsamael, something like that. All is one word name there, but Baal has put together a giant post, and in it I'll be going through a couple of things there. So if you want more, then go check out the link in the description box as well. There's also a Google document down there that came together from a bunch of prominent I actually just read this right now. This took me by surprise. In the Google document, actually, right now, they tossed a nod to me for looking at this stuff for the Warlock Shadowlands compiled feedback thread. I didn't notice that. I was scrolling back up top to double check my notes, and they updated the actual Google document saying that, you know, waving at me over the internet. But the overall Google document post came together from a bunch of different prominent warlocks and trying to get together a whole bunch of potential additional feedback points. Now, of course, this document's a bit like all over the place. It goes all around different things and probably stuff that won't ever actually come to be. But it's actually stories down here now that I haven't seen before, talking about differences that other classes have versus the design, say, of the Demonology Warlock and stuff of that nature. So there's a lot of things going on here actually in this post now. So if you want to go dive into that, then the links are down below. But also right down below the video player is the subscribe button right here on my YouTube channel. If you're enjoying the coverage, if you're enjoying all the deep dives and the analytical, somewhat educational, hopefully coverage here for every single spec, if you're enjoying the Monday through Friday live streams, then everything, of course, is either put together right here on the YouTube channel where you could subscribe to it for free so you know when videos are going live. If you're feeling extra saucy, you can hit that bell icon, that's notifications, so that you'll actually be notified when new videos go live, which normally right now it's almost every single day of the week. But that's up to you. And if not, I just appreciate you hanging out and listening and probably putting comments down below about what is good, what's bad, what's great, what's awful. And I guess we'll start out with obviously the current things that we have all been talking about on the previous Warlock videos, that yes, the 6-second pet summon is real bad. I don't even play a Warlock as a main. I obviously have had Warlocks on my shows. I've had Warlocks in my guilds and my raids. So I obviously sponge up certain things over the years, and this is my, third and a half time doing a big expansion junket testing period like this. And there are certain things that do stick out, even if I don't know all the ins and outs and muscle memory minutia, which obviously can be shown up by the gameplay behind that you're currently watching, if you're watching, which is mostly it's alpha. I'm just testing how things work, and if it feels weird for me, that it might feel weird for the more seasoned warlocks. The 6-second cast time demon thing is really weird. Maybe it's someone punched in the wrong number somewhere, but I really can't imagine that's got to go. It can't go live, right? There's just no way. If they don't change something else in the warlock toolkit, if their demonology traits or talents more specifically that only affect your Felguard. And if you don't have your Felguard out, you just can't spec those. But if you don't have your Fel Hunter out, you can't interrupt. So the easiest decision is just to make that PvP talent the Call Fel Hunter or the Invoke Fel Hunter, just your actual interrupt. It's an interrupt, it's ranged, it's a 24-second cooldown, I believe. And remove the Fel Hunter interrupt and make it a purge. Make him eat a magic buff on the target. So you've got the Mesmerize Succubus, you've got the Self Dispel Imp, you've got the offensive purge Doggo, and of course you've got the tanky pet. And then you've got, if you're a Demonology Warlock, you mostly always use your Fel Hunter. Not your Fel, you can't use your Fel Hunter. You use your Felguard a lot of the time. And it's also weird, why don't those abilities, you pull up their names again just so I don't mess them up. Why doesn't Demonic Strength just buff your current pet with like an Immolation aura or something? Or the Demon Wrath ability, the AoE you used to have in expansions past? Or why doesn't Soul Strike just do exactly that ability on whatever pet you have out? It's just an extra instant attack that scales with your spell power that the pet does. Why does it have to be the Felguard? There are these weird things about the Warlock class that sort of reared their ugly heads while testing that many of you, of course, listening right now are like nodding your heads like, yeah, we've heard about these things before for a long time. They haven't been changed, so maybe they'll get fixed going into a new expansion. Who knows? I think even just a lot of this feedback that's coming up in these threads, and as I start going through here, I've stopped on Affliction. Once I start talking about demons, we'll go over Affliction for a little bit here, is that there are certain things that just don't work. And it almost seems, which this sounds awful, but it seems like some part of the development team at Blizzard never has played these specs. Because, you know, from the shadows, for example, in that Soul Strike tier for Demonology, makes casting your Call Dreadstalkers, causes the target to take 20% additional damage from your Shadow Flame for the next 12 seconds. Or 20% more Shadow Flame damage. But it only affects the Warlock. But usually you'd imagine that everything that you would do, pets included, would be affected by these certain things. But nope. Nope, it doesn't affect your pets. It only affects your Hand of Gul'dan. And there's one other thing it affects right now, actually. Let me double check. I wrote this all down. From the Shadows only affects Hand of Gul'dan and Demon Bolt. It doesn't even affect the AoE from Dreadlash, which is a baseline talent that you do. When your Dreadstalker charge into battle, their Dreadbite attacks hits all enemies within 8 yards for 25% more damage. But it doesn't even what? It doesn't even do it. And that brings up the side point before I just get totally absolutely beside myself with just tooltips. But what the heck is even that the Summon Dreadstalkers tooltip exists? I think I've submitted a bug report for this ability at least 2 expansions in a row now, if not going on 3. I don't understand how a tooltip can be so incredibly incomplete. It's that and Summon Vile Fiend as well. Summon Vile Fiend, might as well just say, summons a Vile Fiend dot that puts a dot on the target that also attacks by himself as a dot, but looks like he's not a dot. Because that's what Vile Fiend does. It summons, it spits, the tooltip doesn't tell you what it does, it doesn't tell you the damage of the DOT landing, it doesn't tell you the damage of the DOT over time, it doesn't tell you what the damage of the damn pet hits for while it's active. I don't understand. It's some of these things that I feel like no one plays this, or they haven't put any time into it internally to share the information with the players. And I know I'm like on this like righteous crusade of tooltip, you know, analytics and make sure it tells it, but damn it, if it put the base information in your damn game, because what the heck's the point? Why should we have to go to these giant Google documents and Wowhead guides, which are fantastic, but they should be helping you like hone your skills and understand nuance and deeper parts of the spec and not just finding out what the hell your abilities do. Celestial Fortitude, anyone? Anyone play a Brewmaster out there? Did you know that the crit percentage effects your absorbs? Probably many didn't. And I don't understand it. So anyway, let's double back here real quick. Affliction Warlock, with all the demon nonsense out of the way, Affliction Warlock actually feels like the most put together Warlock, which is the only really one in all of this has actually got any adjustments. And sidebar, you shouldn't need... The borrowed power is nice. The borrowed power in Legion, the borrowed power in BFA, the new borrowed power we're going to get in Shadowlands. The borrowed power whole thing, it's nice if it's like the frosting and the sprinkles on the cake. But damn it all, man. The layers of the cake and like the base frosting that holds those layers of cake together should be in the base spec. And there are things that I'm reading in this giant post that... by Baalsamael. I gotta talk to him and how to pronounce his damn name. But there's a funny part here with the new spender, right? So Malefic Rupture is a cast time that just goes bleh. It basically just ruptures it's epidemic, like Unholy Decay. It makes, based on how many dots on all of your targets that have dots on them, deals additional instant damage. The actual blue post said it was supposed to speed up how fast your dots ticked, I guess for a short period of time. That never went live. Additionally, the Soul Rack ability, which I guess was a 5 Soul Shard single target Malefic Grasp, according to how it sounds like in the Torghast spell that still affects a spell that doesn't exist in the game, and some data mining shenanigans on like resources and stuff like that and strings from the initial builds. That sounds kind of cool, actually. Just call it Malefic Grasp, though. Why is it going to be a totally different name? Malefic Rupture, Malefic Grasp. One is like AoE and spread cleave, and one is single target. Because draining is a big deal, and that's why in the VOD, if you want to go back and watch the dungeon run for the Affliction Warlock, I spec'd into Drain Soul just because it feels like the way that you should be. You should put your dots out and then drain. Also, drain stealing on that last little bit of health on mobs in a dungeon to make sure you have shards going to the next pack is also a huge part of making sure you keep up with what you're doing and moving forward and whatnot. But there's an interesting part of this post here. So Malefic Rapture currently is unaffected by mastery for Affliction, which means that your mastery rate will go way down, which is weird because then your dots will go down. They'll go up with your spell power, but down with your mastery. There's also parts here. Let me just kind of read this almost verbatim and put yourself in the mindset right now of what Affliction might have to go through if something doesn't change. So your new Soul Shard Spender is a cast time, right? It's a GCD cast time, not a big deal. But you have to deal with keeping and maintaining corruption instant cast. You may have it absolute corruption. You might not. Depends on a number of things, right? Maybe Siphon Life works out better because obviously it's another dot. But anyway, Corruption, instant cast. Agony, instant cast. Doom, instant cast. If you even get to cast Doom, I'm not going to go on the tangent about curses being back. You know by now they're back and they whatever. But then Untitled Affliction has a short cast time. Malefic Grasp has a cast time. So you have a filler that also has a cast time. So now add in, what if you also spec into Haunt, another cast time? What if you spec into Vile Taint, another cast time? What if you spec either that or Phantom Singularity? Both are a cast time. And then again, like I said before, what if you spec not into Absolute Corruption, but you spec into Siphon Life, another cast time? I know the fantasy of Affliction is cast a dot, cast a dot, cast a dot, cast a dot, cast a dot. Right now in the game, you're just like shotgunning UAs out there. UA, Dark Glare, or whatever have you, right? Usually it's 3 or 4 and then a dark, whatever. So there's something a little bit icky there about then your filler, if it's not Drain Soul, which at least Drain Soul you can start channeling and deal some damage and then go back to doing your dots, is Shadow Bolt most of the time. And then there's Death Bolt, which doesn't even interact with Shadow Bolt. It doesn't replace Shadow Bolt, but it almost feels like it should be a Shadow Bolt that's chonkier, and then it does what Death Bolt does instead of his extra ability. I don't know. There's just something... There's something missing right there in the formula. And other things that are missing, go back to Demonology for a moment, is why do hunters get an amazing stable and customizable, farmable, almost like cosmetic catching of hunter pets. But demonology warlocks more specifically, but warlocks in general, you basically have a pocket dimension, which the Burning Legion dimension, the Twisting Nether, is essentially attached to all realities. All dimensions are, whatever, Prince Malchus. You don't get to do barely any customization that isn't just like a glyph. And I think most of those aren't even in the game anymore. So why can't you have, there's a really great part of this post, which again, linked in the description, going over how there could be this like cosmetic customizable grimoire that you could go out as a warlock. And I think there's like dozens and dozens of demons in this thing, where there's Annihilans, Antaeans, Bile Scourge, is it Aranasi, Darkhounds, Doomguards, Doomlords, Fellbats, Fellbeast, Fellhounds, Fellstalkers, Fiends, which are Terror Guards, Fear Fiends, and Terror Fiends, Imps and Fell Imps, Imp Mothers, Infernals, Abyssals, Inquisitors, Jailers, Manari, Eridar, Wraithguard, Ganar. It keeps going. It keeps going and going and going. All these cool demons that you're supposed to be in command of, and if anything, a conduit to use them for what you're doing as a character. And there's no fantasy, there's no RPG sense of this like customizable grimoire where you can make your imp look different if you're just having your regular imp out, or if you're demonology, how your fellow guard looks totally different. What if it's like a little pit lord pet? It acts exactly the same. It's just a pit lord, because you're a demonology warlock. You're the master of summoning demons. And there's just this huge lack of gameplay elements for, gotta catch them all, but they're demons, which, depending on if you're a Pokemon master, some of the actual Pokemon are demons because they literally eat children. Yeah, look into that. If you're not into Pokemon lore, maybe you won't. But if you are, you're going like, I know that Pokemon. Yep. And you know what I'm talking about. There's something so fundamentally awesome that could be there about enslaving and taming elite demons, or just for having cosmetic ones to complete your entire grimoire. Those are good. Then when they add in new demons, then you could like, oh, I gotta go get those new demons. Just like how hunters feel. It's the only classes in the game, Beast Mastery and Demonology Warlock, that have that necromancer summon, style. Because Unholy Death might summon stuff, but like summons ghouls and they die, right? Summons skeletons and they die. It's a little different. You are summoning more, your imps get summoned and they die too. But there's something more maybe permanent in your control over demons, and then beast mastering with their beasts, animals, and not even just beasts anymore. It's just like a whole slew of them. Next thing you know, you're gonna have like dolphins and bubbles floating next to them or something like that. But there's something there that would be really awesome. And even this is not power fantasy based at all, because don't get even started on that. What the hell is Demonic Tyrant doing still on a cast time? But Infernal and Dark Glare instant. Infernal is even instant, and it deals damage and stuns when it summons. And I didn't actually know this. I didn't see this in all of my testing, because again, I can't keep up with everything, but you're watching Destruction Warlock footage in the background. I didn't know that, yeah, everything that was fun in BFA is just gone, right? For Destruction specifically. I didn't know this. Did you know this? Your Infernal's damage, its immolation aura, was buffed by, I believe, 20%, if I can read this string correctly. So it is even stronger, whereas Dark Glare, without having the ability to extend multiple UAs anymore, it still obviously extends your dots, but you only have one UA now. I'll double check. I'm going to double check. Summon Dark Glare is 32% of your spell power in Shadowlands and is 32% of your spell power right now in BFA. So it's not even buffed. Not even buffed. Tyrant, I know, is a 90-second cooldown, right? It's part of the summoning in your demons and then summoning your Tyrant to buff them. But because A, it has a cast time, B, Hand of Gul'dan has a cast time into the delayed summoning of imps. They don't just go Hand of Gul'dan 3 imps. It's Hand of Gul'dan imp, imp, imp. which means they all start their cast times differently and you get different variants on their energy levels. This is like a totally different side topic about demonic consumption and how that talent should just not be in the game anymore. And I suggested in the Demonology Warlock video a suggestion for that talent. You can go listen to that if you'd like. I basically just try to summarize a new demon form or like demonic apotheosis kind of thing to give you a little bit of that old flavor you used to have back in the day, but obviously not have something as egregiously ridiculous as Warlord's Metamorphosis for Demonology Warlocks, because that's not coming back. I'm sorry. It's just not coming back. There's no way. We got to look at the whole Grimoire thing is a huge thing. But we have to look at the 4, 5, 6 really big deal problems to get sorted. And things like Tyrant should be instant. Demonic consumption can be just blasted out of there because imp energy is weird. It's desynced. You can't even see it. You have to get an exterior add-on or a weak aura to see the energy of your imps. And if you don't even know what I'm talking about, it's because it's not even in the game. Ah, it's so freaking weird, man. And then Destruction Warlock, really nothing has changed with Destruction. Like the core backline of Destruction is the same. It's just that all your fun bits of BFA are just gone, right? You're not going to have any random infernal procs. You're not going to have any Azurite traits that help accelerate your Chaos Bolt windows. None of that. You're not going to have Roiling Havoc, huge spell power burst windows when you put Havoc up. None of that. It's all just gone. So I think this the weird thing. A weird thing. I'm going to get close to the microphone right now. The weird thing is I think Blizzard is trying to pull a fast one on melee and casters without telling you this. But I actually think that because of the way they've seen Mythic Plus change over the course of Legion to BFA, I think they're trying to put a lot of AoE caps and the square root formula on a lot of melee. Because in all of the Warlock testing, none of that except the Felguard Fellstorm Bladestorm thing, which does impact demonic strength because it's the same thing. It's just a stronger version. That has 8 target cap, but it's gonna tick every second or a little less than base during haste. It's gonna have a maximum number of targets it'll ever hit per spin. But I mean, nothing like that for anything Warlock. Nothing. There's no square roots that we found in any damage fall-offs. There's no AoE target caps on anything unless they're the hidden ones that don't take into effect until you're at like 20 or 30 mobs, which how often do you even pull that over the course of the entirety of BFA? I mean, and Kib told me this, so hopefully, you know, Kib's not pulling my leg. I trust most of what Kib says. Said that over the course of all the raid encounters in all of Battle for Azeroth, only 5 of them even had bosses where you hit multiple targets that would ever be considered AoE type fights. 5 out of 3.5 raids. So it's less of a thing for raiding, more of a thing for Mythic Plus, even though I do believe what Blizzard's trying to do also is nudge people to effectively and efficiently pull smaller mob packs and not Mongo pull 20 or 30 mobs and kite them around corners and LOS and all that kind of crap. So we'll see. But I think they're trying to make it so that splashing in like one caster, even though apparently in the recent MDI that happened like today or yesterday or over the weekend, as I'm recording this, there was a Destruction Warlock or there were ranged in their keys, and they're like, oh, I hope you get taken, you know, Warlocks get taken to Mythic Plus now because of this or something like that. I saw the meme tweets flying around here, but one moment to hydrate, one moment. Of course, my music stops, so I'm trying to take a drink. But I think Blizzard is trying to make it so that AoE on a lot of casters may be a thing you care about if you actually need a lot of AoE. Because things like Fel Barrage on Havoc will still blast, but it has a set number of targets that it will pulse to per wave of Fel Barrages. But since it still scales up with haste, you'll still get a ton of Fel Barrage bolts flying out. I think it just kind of like diminishes the overall effectiveness of it. I didn't talk about it in that video by saying it didn't have a target cap, because when I used it, it still hit everything a bajillion times. But I-Beam has the square root formula locking it down a little bit. So that's not going to be good on many targets for I-beam. It's going to cut down I-beam secondary and any other main target damage by a whole hell of a lot. But there's also weird things where now Breath of Sindragosa, even though it's a cooldown, only lasts for like 30-ish seconds of uptime. Even if the Frost DKs did tell me that they were finding ways to make it last for 70 seconds, but okay. Breath of Sindragosa, due to the new square root fall off damage, which is the damage per tick on additional targets, secondary targets, or whatever, is damage divided by the square root of the targets you are currently hitting. That actually makes Breath of Sindragosa stronger than the current version in BFA. So there's some weird things like that, but I didn't see any of that anywhere for Warlock. If I missed something, please let me know in the comments down below, of course. But overall, the Warlock, I mean, I had fun playing the 3 Warlock specs. I do still think that Affliction felt the most complete or stable, even if I do wonder about them not having really a single targety thing. UA and Haunt existing in a similar space doing almost the exact same thing kind of feels weird. The buff to sow the seeds is potentially better. It does make baseline Seed of Corruption worse, and it does impact the rotation to be a spammable AoE awkwardly still because it has a ridiculous cast time. It's still 2.5 seconds before haste, which I really moved that should be just 2 seconds before haste, because then even then it would still be a long cast, but you could still feel like you could spam it and make Sow the Seeds a rotationally sort of spammy AoE with throwing out 3 Seeds of Corruption each time. I was trying it with what did I use? I was using Creeping Death and Absolute Corruption, so that the corruption would tick faster and it would do more damage. And the weird thing was that because of Malefic Rapture exists, they do kind of cannibalize the shards you would be using. But Malefic Rapture is kind of, it's like spread single target. It's not an AoE ability. Whereas putting out 3 Seeds of Corruption that explode, that does mean that Seed of Corruption is 30% stronger, roughly or so, than you are seeing on live right now. I mean, Seed of Corruption is 24% spell power in BFA, and it's 30% spell power in Shadowlands currently. And having 1 additional on Sow the Seeds does mean that you've already gained 12% more spell power, and then an additional 30 from the additional Seed of Corruption. But it still isn't as good as like a Vile Taint Dark Glare. That's not really AoE though. That's more like just more dot rot, which is what Affliction does. But I still think that's what makes it one of the most put together specs. You have different options. Even like Shadow Embrace works, right? Creeping Death, Dark Soul Misery, Soul Conduit. Like you have things. Writhe in Agony is weird without sudden onset because it takes 36 seconds for it to stack all the way up, which is insane. Literally it takes over half a minute for it to reach its full potential. And then if you ever make it fall off, it's even worse, right? Or bosses that do hard resets where all your dots fall off of them are also a problem, because then talents like that are going to be even worse. But they're also weird for things like Absolute Corruption, which could make it so that you have to have bosses that do that. Otherwise, you're just getting free damage. Remember Gahoon with all the cysts up on the ledges? Absolute Corruption would last forever on those. And you got to funnel your Drain Life Azurite talent nonsense. So you could always have a bajillion stacks of that. So there are little things that still have for Warlock, but the core baseline stuff is weird. Curses, I don't know. There's been feedback I've seen that Curse of Tongue should just go back to PvP and bring Curse of Elements or Shadows in, so that you could either have a Demon Hunter or a Warlock. The problem there still comes into play is that curses have to be applied individually, whereas Fellbrand and Mystic Touch are on anything they do just normally, and they can be applied with AoE abilities, and curses cannot be. So should curses cast and then AoE a small area around it, so you don't have to actually just go like you know, tab, curse of weakness, tab, curse of weakness, tab, curse of weakness, tab, curse of weakness, because that sounds awful. I'm sure they'll only be used on high priority targets, but you'll never use Doom, even though Curse of Doom is total bubkiss compared to just putting up the 20% attack speed slow, or even the Curse of Recklessness to make physical damage, do 5% more damage to the target as long as your tank can deal with the 10% more physical damage going out from that target. So, it's just... They've thrown some darts at the Warlock wall, and so far a few of them have definitely landed on very low scores. But you let me know in the comments down below, of course, thoughts that you think. Of course, if you enjoy the coverage, if you've been through this entire ranty video, then show that by hitting the like button. If you did like the sort of summarizing roundup rant here, or if you have not yet subscribed, consider doing so, because I have a lot more coverage coming. We're going to do our feedback junket cycle in mid-June, and then hopefully submit all that to Blizzard, and then not start our beta testing stuff. Hopefully we can see Covenants and see if Covenants and Soulbinds may shore up this, but that's still a band-aid, not an actual fix. My name's been Bay. Thank you all for listening and hanging out and being with me a part of this crazy Warlock journey. I do believe Paladins are up next, and I will see you all in the next Shadowlands Alpha First Pass gobbledygook of me talking to the internet. That's you. You're the internet.